Most people in crypto are completely sidelined right now because they have no idea on the coming pump that is about to happen. And I'm talking about altcoins as well. Do not get me wrong. Alt season, I believe, is still going to happen. And I've got the charts, I've got the evidence, I've got the data to support that in this video. It wasn't just how I woke up this morning. I'm not just choosing to be bullish. I'm supporting it with facts. Now, I don't know exactly what everyone else in this market thinks or where they pull their information from, but I do think most people really rely on their emotions more than anything else. And that's why I think 97% of people end up losing money, is because they're emotional investors, not factual investors. Take a listen to this clip here from a recent interview between Kyle Chassis, Peter from House of Crypto, and Ran from Crypto Banter.
And I still get people saying, oh yeah, but altcoins aren't going anywhere. Like Bitcoin might be out, but there's no altcoins. This time's different. We know that this time's not really different, right?
Yeah. Well, hold on. I think it could be a little bit different. And I'll tell you why it could be a little bit different. The previous cycles have been crypto investors and crypto funds investing in Bitcoin and then moving those profits from Bitcoin down to the altcoins because they can. This cycle, the Bitcoin buying hasn't been done by retail and funds. The Bitcoin buying is being done by Michael Saylor, by Metaplanet, by 21, by the ETF holders, and they're never going to rotate. They're never going to rotate into ETH or Solana or whatever else. And so my thesis here is, just because we've had a massive Bitcoin run doesn't mean we're going to have a massive altcoin run. We will get altcoins running for sure, because there'll always be some kind of cascade down from Bitcoin holders into altcoins. But I don't think that we're going to get an aggressive alt season like the ones we've had previously.
Now, I completely disagree with what Rand from Crypto Banter says. Not because I don't like Rand, but just simply because I just think he's wrong. And I think most people that I see on Twitter or on YouTube in the comments, they also agree with what Rand says. And again, take no offense to this, but I do think a lot of it is because people are more emotional investors than not looking at the charts I'm going to share in this video. Now, the first one here is probably one of the easiest, and that's the fact that, hey, Kyron, Bitcoin is more mature, all right? It's got ETFs, it's got people and nations buying this thing now. Altcoins are kind of left in the dust. Like, how do these two pair up? Well, Bitcoin's price here and altcoins market cap in blue, they show a lot of the same signs they've always had, which is when Bitcoin goes up, alts go up a lot more. When Bitcoin goes down, alts go down a lot more. Okay, it's just simply as easy as that. You can see here Bitcoin going up from $27,000, blowing out of this channel here to $73,000. Alts went up from a $100 billion market cap up to a $350 billion market cap. Okay, so explosive gains here for altcoins. Then, of course, Bitcoin went from $74,000 down to $53,000, so a $20,000 loss, where alts went from $350 billion down to $170 billion, okay? So they just take more of a hit, but they also do go up more as well. So again, the idea of that, hey, this time's different because Bitcoin's a different kind of beast and altcoins are like left in the dust, I believe is irrelevant. Now, I do want to follow up here and also say the fact that this ascending channel that Bitcoin's price is in, this is the same ascending channel that kind of occurs throughout Bitcoin's history. Once Bitcoin's price breaks out of this, you can see here in green, what ends up happening is we have massive alt runs. Again, altcoins market cap goes parabolic when Bitcoin breaks out. You can see here Bitcoin breaks out, alts take a little bit, but then they eventually go parabolic. Again, what I'm looking at here is Bitcoin going up. When Bitcoin goes up, what that tells the world and tells altcoins is, hey guys, it's okay to run, because if Bitcoin's pumping 50% in a month, alts, hey, your chance to run. And I can show you this in a different perspective with looking at Bitcoin's dominance in purple. So when Bitcoin breaks out of this channel, and actually at that time as well, it did about a 13x, it actually lost dominance, which means alt went up even more. What I'm trying to say is I'm waiting myself for Bitcoin to break out of this channel to this green line here, for then alts to go parabolic. Now, it doesn't have to do that, like I showed you before, and this relationship here also proves that once kind of Bitcoin breaks out of local highs, you can see here it broke out of a local high with confidence. What it kind of tells altcoins is it's okay to run, okay? It's okay for you to go up. We have confidence back in the market, and that makes sense. Us retail investors, what do we think? Okay, Bitcoin goes up, breaks new all-time highs, or again, shows strength. We're like, hey, I'm going to put money in my altcoins. The market's pumping. also new retail investors, they think the same thing, okay? Because people mostly know you can't make much money with Bitcoin, so they go to altcoins as the next best thing. Back over here as well, we broke through the previous all-time high, or again, that local high back over here. And what happened to alts on that same weekly candle? Alts went parabolic. Again, they got more than Bitcoin. Bitcoin just dictates the move. We do have a bit more to go, but again, this is a sort of a smaller microcosm example of how the cycles work. Nothing's changed this time around. The dynamic is exactly the same, in my personal opinion, between Bitcoin and altcoins. And as a matter of fact, altcoins are getting squeezed into this ascending triangle, which means that we can likely have a very explosive move once it's eventually time for Bitcoin to, break out of the channel. Now, I promise I'm not picking on Ran. I have nothing against Ran. It's just the fact that it's a recent video. He spoke about this, but there is a lot of misconception, in my personal opinion, about how the path to alt season works. Historically speaking, right from 2015 to about 2022, to the last cycle, it's always gone through this phase where we have money going to Bitcoin, ETH, large caps, and then we have alt season right from mid caps to micro caps, okay? And Rand's argument was that we, back in the previous cycles, had every single person buying Bitcoin buying on centralized exchanges, which means when they make a profit, there's more of a likely chance to then go ahead and throw that into Ethereum, okay? Like, again, this shows here, phase 2 is Ethereum. So they make money in Bitcoin, they then throw that into Ethereum. Let's say we have, 400 million people, buying Bitcoin, okay, which is not, that's an exaggeration, but let's say about 400 million people do. We have about, again, for I think argument's sake, it's nowhere near this, but let's say about half of those people buying Ethereum, okay, which is about 200 million people, well, then we can expect roughly a diluted amount to flow into altcoins. So we might have 25% of the original 100%, of people buying Bitcoin finally eventually buying altcoins as that sort of flow-on effect. And that's why people are saying in this cycle, things are different, like Rand said, because we have this stone-walled effect where people buying Bitcoin via the ETFs or governments and institutions buying Bitcoin, they're not going to be, flowing that money into ETH and altcoins, which means we're not going to have a massive blow-off explosive moment like we did in the past. But again, I disagree with that entirely for actually a couple of reasons. Number one is because I need you guys to think about it like this, okay? Don't think of the pie as it needs to be 100%. Again, let's use the example of 400 million people. Okay, it doesn't quite matter. As long as Bitcoin is gaining more and more adoption over time, you are going to have a higher number or more people buying Bitcoin on those traditional centralized exchanges, regardless of how many people or how much Bitcoin is being purchased via the ETFs and governments and institutions. Put it like this, it's publicity, all right? So the more people that know about Bitcoin, thanks to it being legitimized in the news and thanks to ETFs and even governments buying it, you're going to have retail go, hey, I want to get my hands on it. They naturally go to centralized exchanges. So while you might have, again, like only 50% of people that are buying Bitcoin buying via the traditional ways, via centralized exchanges, it's the amount of people that are buying. So it could be around 1 billion people, for example. If 1 billion people make up 50% of the people buying Bitcoin, it is still better than 100% of the people buying Bitcoin at 400 million. Okay, so that's my argument, is that it doesn't matter, it's good publicity, and we are still getting net more people buying Bitcoin via the traditional ways, which means that all in all, as you go down the pipeline, you're going to get more people, okay, buying the altcoins than you would based on previous cycles. It's just basic adoption. It doesn't matter how the distribution is made up. And these numbers actually aren't random numbers. Like the 1 billion people I talk about here and the 400 million max I spoke about in previous cycles, that's not a made-up statistic. You can see over here, based on this chart by RH, that actually roughly around where we are now, 2026-ish, we're expecting to have around 1 billion people, buying crypto. And it doesn't mean just buying Bitcoin. It is for the argument's sake. But again, it's just to prove the fact that in previous cycles, you can see based on this green line, again, adoption was not the same. Now, my next argument for this not really being that important is even if we didn't have a massive rotation of people from Bitcoin into ETH into altcoins, it doesn't matter because I think historically speaking anyway, that's not really the case, right? And what I mean is that you can see Bitcoin going up, simultaneously alts going up. Okay, and again, we can look at this more broadly here and look at the actual ascending channels. And when we actually have alt season, and when we have alt season, guys, guess what? Bitcoin goes up as alts go up. Alts just go up even more, which is the reason why we actually see Bitcoin dominance fall. But make no mistake, Bitcoin still skyrockets as alts go up. So in my opinion, this whole problem around this, alt season money flow, and that we have to, again, have people buying Bitcoin on centralized exchanges and buying on ETH and then bringing in, it doesn't really matter anyway, because money will still flow into altcoins even as Bitcoin goes up. And I believe Bitcoin still has a fair bit of room to still go, because what I'm again eyeing off, guys, is Bitcoin breaking out of this ascending channel. This is alt season. So that's what I'm eyeing off. This is alt season, at least based on the last one, based on the last two, based on the last 3 cycles. So again, it might be different this time. I'm just going off the track history, right? And a way in which we can know whether we do have room in the tank still to go from where we are right now at about $108,000 up to here, which is $150,000, and then breaking out, is by looking at charts like this, MVRV. MVRV is market value to realized value. All this tells me is whether most people in Bitcoin are at a significant profit. And if they are, you can see here, they will likely take profit, and then Bitcoin, of course, will fall. I can show you guys a better example of this by using the MVRV in white here. Again, drawing that line across, which actually happens to be the exact local high of each of these moves Bitcoin has had. So in my opinion, you can see we are down here at a 2.37 score on the MVRV, whereas based on the last, when's this? March 24, so about a whole entire year, the last 2 pumps, we've kind of failed to break above the 2.66 mark. So the fact that we're at 2.3, 2.6 means that we do have more room in the tank. Same can be said looking into the fear and greed. I think the fear and greed, historically speaking, is a very important indicator to look at. While it might seem basic, again, if most people are in greed and they're making lots of money, then we can expect the pullback to come pretty soon. So you can see over here that based on the last 2 pumps as well, that we did get into extreme greed, a score of 80 both times. Again, both times also being capped out on MVRV. So, these things actually do compound and add up, and the story begins to unfold, if you will. And so you can see down here, based on the monthly fear and greed, that we are only at a score of 50, so pretty much even. So like I said with the MVRV, we do have a while's way to still go where Bitcoin can go up in price, and for me to be more comfortable here about it blowing out of the ascending channel. Let me remind you guys, breaking out of this ascending channel is what will cause alt season. So again, a lot of these indicators are saying we still have room to go. Looking at the MVRV in a different way, this is looking at deviation bands. Okay, now the deviation bands itself are very, very useful, because you can see here around the top dark red band, that's actually when we likely are going to see a pullback. Now, we are getting dangerously close to this, as you can see here. Okay, so that could indicate that the red band here being about $118,000, that we do find ourselves finding some resistance around the 120K mark. However, you can see, like back over here, we can easily blow above it. Okay, so this red band was marking resistance at $66,000, but we went up to about $72,000, $74,000, $73,000. So again, it can blow out from that. You can see it also did blow out from over here. So again, we'll have to wait and see what proceeds, but this is something to keep an eye on as well. The NUPL, or net unrealized profit loss chart, which is this, is also a pretty good indicator to use as well. It's essentially like the MVRV chart. It just pretty much allows us to look into the Bitcoin network itself and figure out how many people are in profit or how many people are in loss, or unrealized profit and loss. So we can expect pullbacks when people are in significant profit. That's why, of course, it's important to look into these deviation bands as well. And you can see here we have found resistance around that same sort of level as the MVRV, around 0.625. So we do have room in the tank before we come up to this, historically strong level of resistance. And lastly, stablecoins. I'm going to mention this more in just a second here, but this is the SSRO, or stablecoins versus Bitcoin. This bottom chart over here shows stablecoins. When stablecoins are stronger, this chart goes down to the green zone. Okay, if stablecoins start losing strength and Bitcoin starts going up, you can see over here, that means that we go into the red zone. So the red zone is actually bad, because that means that it takes more of stablecoins purchasing power to move the price of Bitcoin higher. So why this is so important is the fact that once we have healthily reset, which we have, and we are now pushing up, I wouldn't be too worried about seeing a massive pullback until we start to go into the red zone, particularly the darker red zone over here. So we're about just after break break even, I guess, or a score of 0, which means that we likely have roughly, I think at least, double this move to still go. So another 50 or so percent, which could see us, you can see here, break above to about $160,000. If that's the case and we do have a pullback up here, that pullback could come at a perfect time to be like a healthy sort of retest of this upper trend line. So it could be something where, like, again, Bitcoin goes up, a lot of these indicators possibly starting to signal it being overheated, and then we eventually have the retest here from touching 160,000 before going up again, actually causing our blow off top moment. Now, there's a lot to be said about when this actually could happen. I believe we're going to need, interest rates to start to fall. We're going to need macro catalysts to help us get along that path. But I think it's going to happen, and it could happen as early as the next 3 or 4 months. It would look kind of something like this, where again, we break out, find a strong level of resistance, retest that trend line before going up. Now, I want to very briefly rehash what I mentioned in this video here. That goes into saying altcoins don't need all that much money to explode. And this is all because of how cryptocurrency works. There's a massive lie in this industry, guys, when it comes to crypto and market cap. Market cap is the worst possible thing in the world to look at in crypto because it is not a true reflection of how much money is actually invested in a coin. Again, please, before you comment down below, like, I don't know what I'm talking about, just go watch this video. Go watch this video. It explains everything in a lot of detail. And again, very briefly, what I'm saying here is that a coin like Solana that's valued at $92 billion, for this coin to 2x, someone may think, well, Kyron, we have to have a massive rotation of people taking profits in Bitcoin and then ETH and then altcoins in order for Solana to 2x, because Solana has to go up an extra $92 billion to 2x. It's very, very difficult. When in fact, that is completely wrong. As a matter of fact, mathematically speaking, for Solana at $92 billion market cap to 2x, it only needs $1.1 billion invested in it. That is about 1.5%, 1.5% of the market cap invested in it for it to 2x. If you're asking how, that doesn't sound right. It's all got to do with volume. It's all got to do with plus and minus 2% depth. Okay? Plus 2% depth means this is how much money is required to move the price on this exchange, on this pairing, up 2%. Okay, so to move, Solana USDT pair up on Binance 2%, I need to buy $6 million. Now, as you might imagine, as the coin gets bigger and bigger, okay, what happens is these order books get bigger and bigger as well. So you look at a coin like Solana with 6, 7, $2 million, plus 2% depth to move the coin, it's quite a lot, right? Whereas you come down here even to Sui, for example, like, again, a 12 billion market cap altcoin, and look at its order book, all right, it's significantly smaller, 1,500,000, 100,000. So as the coin gets bigger, yes, you require more, but I actually kind of factor this in to the equation. So for Solana at this current price to 5x, okay, you need $6 billion. The market cap would be $475 billion. So again, guys, we don't need trillions of dollars to exit Bitcoin and flow into alts for us to go exponential. We need fractions and fractions of that. The last thing I'll mention as well is stablecoins are also skyrocketing. Now, stablecoins are very important to assess in crypto. And the reason why is because talking about altcoins and alt season, this is the equivalent of Bitcoin's M2. Okay, this is what fuels higher prices, because stablecoins being minted usually ends up finding its way into ecosystem projects in either DeFi or, again, people just buying up, altcoins. And this is at all-time highs of about $240 billion. The previous cycle's high was $174 billion. So it's going up, and it's going up at a rapid rate, which is not what you find when it is a bear market or when things are, again, slowing down. And I know it's going to get even better because we have a series of stablecoin bills passing, okay, in the US. Now, we just had the Genius Act being passed, and what this is going to do is establish federal safeguards that protect holders of stablecoins and enhance consumer confidence. Now, more specifically, these stablecoin issuers like Tether and Circle are going to have 100% reserve backing with US dollars and short-term treasuries, which means that we can't have a run-on-the-bank situation. So that's going to protect us. And what that really means is that we're going to have some really, really big boys, like we're even seeing here, Citigroup, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, look to create their own stable coins because legislation's passing, And it also means that institutions individually will want to use USDT, USDC, and so on. And I can summarize my thoughts with this quote here. This opens the floodgates. You'll see entry by many issuers. Again, like these guys looking to create a joint stablecoin, kind of crazy actually. Consumers will also have more choices and more confidence. And this is just going to bring more competition and innovation in payments, but also it breaks down the barrier, okay? Now, regular retail folks who may have an account with JP Morgan or have an account with Citigroup can now be one step closer to buying altcoins because they already have stablecoins. Now, like I said before, I think a lot of these indicators are showing the fact that we definitely have enough steam to blow out of the ascending channel and blow past $150,000, $160,000. And I think this chart also supports that as well. This is the stablecoins dominance, so USDT, USDC, and DAI. And you can see when this goes down, it's actually a good thing for altcoins. Okay, this is altcoin market cap. It's inversely correlated. When stablecoins go down, money flows into altcoins. That's why I again think it's a fantastic thing here that we're seeing these bills pass and the stablecoin market cap go up, because as this goes up, we again have just simply more capital to be able to invest into altcoins to pump them. And I do think that we are likely to meet this bottom trend line again. As they say, the third touch of a trend line has a 75% or so chance of breaking. So that's, of course, what I'm hoping for here. And if it does, all we need to do is fall, I believe, circa 50% for us to go into full-blown alt season from there. This little snippet back here was actually the alt season of 2021. And from high to low, it fell 60%. So that, again, is just another thing to look out for here, guys. I think breaking through this is going to be a very strong sign for altcoins again, with more capital coming in due time. And look, I just want to thank you all for staying tuned right to the very end of this video. Hopefully it's covered all you need to know about altcoins, Bitcoin, and whether or not alt season will come around this time at all. So thank you all. Talk to you all tomorrow. Take good care. Bye-bye.